Today we're taking a look at a great Shikishima game I had the other day, and this ship is awesome. Not just for the gun sounds, although I got to admit that's one of the best reasons to get this ship is the gun sounds, because they just sound amazing. I really, really do like it. Yeah, that's the best gun sound in the game. It's really, really, really satisfying. The problem, though, with this ship is that you get basically the same gameplay style as Yamato, but you're spending a bunch of steel on it. So I would probably recommend to most people to buy the Bourgogne first, or maybe a Stalingrad, a more unique experience for your likely hard-earned steel, right? But if you do decide to get this ship, you probably are getting a slightly better version of the Yamato. Sure, you're lacking that weight of the broadside firepower. You're missing three guns, only two guns per turret, but you get a better reload. You get a kind of pseudo built-in unique upgrade. So Yamato dispersion with the unique upgrade is the same as just regular Shikishima dispersion, which is pretty nice. And I think the biggest thing that makes Shikishima a little bit more comfortable to play most of the time is its AA. And I know AA is not that useful against carriers, but Shikishima AA is actually good enough that you're not the first target of the enemy CV. Most of the time. Sometimes you definitely are, but it's good enough that CVs tend to try and pick a lighter AA type of ship first, especially in matches where there's lower tiers, because most tier 9s just don't even have anywhere close to the AA Shikishima does. So that is probably my favorite part about the difference between Shikishima and Yamato. Otherwise, the overmatch difference is negligible. It's basically just a Riga that has 35 millimeters of armor that Shikishima can overmatch that Yamato can't. And that's about it. I do find the guns a little more frustrating on Shikishima because you only have 6. And, well, with the same dispersion, you're going to be missing more often just because you don't have as many shells in that same little area. But with all that said, this is a very, very good ship, and it makes aiming at longer ranges pretty easy because the shell drag is so low on these gigantic shells. So the practice that you put in to be able to aim and lead properly at longer ranges is going to be rewarded with this ship. I think this is a great ship to be, shooting cross maps, right? You're going to be able to hit Georges for huge hits, just like we did there. Of course, this ship does struggle in closer range situations because of the cheek. We all know the Yamato cheek, it's pretty famous, but it really does hurt this ship in more close range scenarios. So if you're finding yourself facing another Shikishima like I am here, or you're fighting a Yamato, anything that overmatches 32 millimeters of armor, you don't want to give a 20 to 30 degree angle. You obviously don't want to be broadside. But if you're trying to mitigate those bow sits or those stern sits through the cheeks of this ship, the best way to go is directly bow in or directly stern in. That is the best way I've found because the shells have a long distance to travel from the tip of the nose all the way into your citadel. If you give broadside in the Shikishima, you're of course probably going to take a huge amount of damage. This ship has one of the biggest citadels in the entire game. And, well, it is very lucky that I got that dispersion in that salvo. It's not too uncommon to eat 1 or 2 citadels from most other tier 10 battleships when you give broadside at those ranges. I think 60,000 damage there is above average, obviously. But I think, 20 to 30k would be just expected when you go broadside in a Shikishima or Yamato at those kind of ranges. So playing this ship relies a lot on good positioning and not overcommitting. Burning a Yamato or Shikishima down is really not that hard, so you don't really want to bow tank in this ship anymore. Back in the day, the meta was always to bow tank, and with the large amount of DPM increases we've had over the years, and combined with CVs being very good against you when you're bow in, I just find that going bow in is a really, really bad idea these days. So I'll often play this ship a little farther back than maybe I should be playing it. We've obviously played very passive so far, but we've been rewarded with quite a bit of damage. And now that the enemy team has been kind of corralled into their spawn here, all we have to do is kind of hold our hold on to our flanks, crossfire these guys, and this game should be an easy win, right? Well, not quite. We'll get into that a little more in the end of this video, but all the action happens in the first little bit here. So my damage numbers, I think, go up a little bit more, but not a ton. I want to talk more about the strategy of winning a game and decision-making that you can do as a solo player to help your team complete a win, that kind of thing. So it's not the easiest thing to do. Not every situation is different, but if you find yourself, which I think most of us do, where you're one of the last ships alive and the game is very close, what are some things to be thinking about and doing that help your team win, but don't, and obviously you don't want to throw games away, right, just based on your own play. So just YOLOing in by yourself is usually a bad idea. So you got to consider what your teammates are doing and trying to play with them. It's a little hard when you're solo. Obviously, in a division, you're able to do this much, much better. But when you're solo, there are some things you can do. You can consider where your teammates are going, what they're shooting at, and try and focus target with them. You can't really control your teammates all that well, but you can control what you do. So if your teammates are focusing on one target and you know a different target is the better target to shoot at to win the game, well, maybe consider shooting at the slightly worse target that your teams are shooting at, because focus fire is crucial to carrying out and winning games in the late game. And that's why a well-coordinated team in clan battles or any sort of competitive thing it's all about shooting at the same targets and playing together with your team. Focus fire kills people very, very, very quickly. So it might be difficult to do that, and you might get frustrated, but that's what I try and do. I try and play around what my teammates are doing a lot of the time. Sometimes you do have to make solo runs by yourself, and we'll see that a little bit here, because we're going to have to push late game into the B cap when there's not too many of our friendly ships alive yet. Ideally, in a match like this, you shouldn't be pushing in a match like this. We have we had a decent positional advantage on the enemy team, but we're down on ships and we're down on points at this point. So it's really starting to slip away. Our team has overcommitted in two different situations. Our Thunderer is in a bad spot. Both our DDs are on the in the enemy spawn, behind the enemy spawn. It's really not the best way to go about winning a game. It certainly distracts the enemy team, and sometimes it's the right play. But a lot of the time, just making sure the enemy team stays corralled is a better way to go about winning a game. So with this match, now that we've killed the Des Moines, the main threat to our DDs in the spawn for the moment, we need to consider what is happening in our spawn. And that's that there's a Venezia in our spawn. And that's going to be really, really difficult to deal with. Of course, Venezia is one of the strongest flanking ships in the game. It's really, really, really good at killing almost anything when it gets on your flank, and you have to deal with multiple angles at the same time. And while this Venezia appears to be like he'll be alone down here, it's really tough because there's destroyers in the area. We don't really know where they're at right now. They haven't been spotted for a little bit. If I had to guess, they're probably going up to deal with our two destroyers, and that's why I'm just going to push into the B cap right now. We know the Daring is in A, and our two DDs are really annoying the enemy team up in the north, so I would guess maybe the Friesland and maybe the Fletcher both went to the north to try and deal with those destroyers and help their battleships stay alive. And that's an opportunity we need to take. And I could wait for my Alabama and my Alaska friends, but I think I just need to start going to the B cap. The caps are really going to tick in the enemy's favor once the Daring collects the A cap, so we really need to get a move on before we let this game just slip away too far, because we're likely going to lose our two destroyers in the north. I really do believe that if the enemy destroyers go there. So we need to take back some ground, take back some cap control to help deal with that point loss that we're going to receive when our DDs probably end up going down. Luckily, our DDs actually managed to finish off all the battleships up north, so it might have turned out that that's a really good play after all. But We'll see. At this point, shooting out of Venezia at long range is really not the best way to go about things. It's a lot about luck and predicting the enemy ship. Venezia is so maneuverable at these ranges that if it's a good player, they're probably going to be able to dodge your shells most of the time. So I decide to go dark, and I want to not go directly close to this island. The reason I turned left is I wanted to have a little bit of gap just in case a DD started rushing me. But since I am not spotted coming around this island, I decide to turn back into the B cap, and with this Venezia pushing me in smoke, kite away from him a little bit, and just try and use my overmatch to kill him. Of course, Venezia does have an icebreaker, and I believe it's a 40mm icebreaker. I actually don't remember, but I'm pretty sure he can bounce some of my shells off of his bow. So we're trying to aim a little bit high, and we know his upper belt and deck armor is around 30mm, so we want to be shooting into that. Something else here, just really quick in the details of this fight, I did pop my spotter plane, and that was to keep this Venezia spotted while I go behind this island. I knew my guns would reload when I was behind the island, and I didn't want to waste some time not having the guy lit, right? So just really quickly there. Now, our two destroyers have actually ended up dying. They did trade out the Fletcher, and we're left in a 3v2, and you would think we should win this, but it's two destroyers versus two battleships and an Alaska. So we really are going to rely heavily on the Alaska's radar. So what we need to do is just hold on to B and C, and our points should tick in our favor. We now know where the Friesland is at, and our Alaska just radared, so we know that nothing is within 10 kilometers of that Alaska's range. So I'm going to push up just a little bit. Our Alabama is going south. We don't actually really know which way the Daring went. We are spotted now. We know it's not the Friesland. So the Daring could be either in the north or he could be in the south behind us. We don't really know for sure. So I'm trying to figure out where these guys are, especially the Daring, because he's the one with torpedoes. And he's the real big threat. The Friesland we can probably deal with because he's just a gunboat. And in this kind of scenario, it's going to be really hard for him to deal with us if we just sit kind of in the B cap, right? It's the Daring who can really mess this game up for us. So I want to know if the Daring is going to be going for C cap behind us or in the north, right? And I turned hard in here because I was going in a straight line for a long period of time. You don't ever want to just go in straight lines. And the Alaska with this hydro actually ends up spotting the Daring torpedoes. And now we know where the Daring is. So I immediately say, because I saw those torpedoes, both destroyers in the north, communicating with your teammates can lead to more wins. Of course, if you ask someone to do something, there's no guarantee they're actually going to listen to you. And that's okay, right? You can't be upset at someone for not doing exactly what you say, because it does get annoying when people try and backseat game you while you're playing, right? But the really nice thing is that we know where both the destroyers are now. So the best play to make here is to actually just sit behind this island and force the DDs to come to us. We're going to be up on points here soon. The score timer is a great mod. If you don't have it, I would highly recommend getting it. It's not as useful for the majority of games, but when you're in a scenario like this and you need to know who's going to win at the end of the game, we only have 2 minutes left on the clock. Having the ability to know you're going to catch back up on points and pass on points before the end of the game is a huge deal. And, well, our Alaska ends up going down. He had used his radar earlier, and I believe the Friesland just smoked up and the Daring gunned him down, something like that. So it's not looking too good for us. So now we know we need to get a kill, or our Alabama needs to get an A to stall it. We're not sure if he's going to be capable of stalling that long, or if that'll actually let us catch back up on points, but that's what we need to do. I'm reversing out to try and bait the Daring or the Friesland. Important to know is that the Daring probably has his torps up, so we're just going to need to go back forward again. We can't just sit here, so we have to go forward. As much as I want to reverse out and shoot this Friesland and try and collect a kill, it's not worth me dying, especially now that we know, since the Alabama is in A, we know we're going to catch back up on points if he just sits in there. We know where the Daring is. We have not been unlit this entire time we've been behind this island. So we know the Daring is slowly making his way towards the right side of the map and potentially going towards C. So we know our Alabama is relatively safe. The Friesland probably can't gun him down in the next minute. So we know our Alabama is reasonably safe. So all it is up to me to stay alive and prevent the enemy team from getting B. So I am simply using my detection and the angles that I can be detected from to figure out where the Daring is. So I believe he's in this little gap between these two islands here that I'm pointing at, or at least to the left of where I'm pointing. And we go dark. That means the Daring has to be behind those islands somewhere. So I think he's got to charge in for B cap. That's the only cap they can reach, and I need to prepare for him to get there. We're safe from torpedoes if he torped before he got behind this island, and there he is. So we find him, and he's on enough HP that one salvo probably isn't going to be enough to do it. So we're not going to end up killing this guy. I didn't quite aim that correctly, and our dispersion didn't really help us much either. We get a Confederate, though, which is pretty sick. And that was just positional outplays to win a game. If we had all walked out into the open water, we probably would have all died. But playing around islands and as a battleship, staying near caps where the DDs have to push into you is a risky but good way to secure a win, potentially. If you go out in the open water or you just run away, you're probably just going to lose the game. So we had to do something, we had to make a stand, and I decided to make my stand on that island, and it worked out. So obviously not every match is the exact same, and I can't tell you exactly how to carry out every game you're in, but thinking about where you need to go to win the game, is it caps, is it kills, is it holding position, different things like that, and thinking about the enemy has to do to win the game, whether they need to push into you, whether they need caps, or whether they can run off this map and just get the win. All of those things, just even starting to think about those things, is a great way to help yourself get in the mindset of carrying a game out. And thinking about where you're getting spotted from, like using island cover to limit where you can get spotted from, tells you something. It tells you, gives you information on where the enemy destroyer is, even if you don't have them spotted. It's all these little things that can help add up to winning games, that kind of thing. So the Shikishima is a great ship and all, but that game could have been done in a lot of different battleships. So it's not unique to this ship. You can definitely do it in the tech tree battleships as well. But this was just a great game in the Shikishima, and it's always nice to hear those guns, right? So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great day.